Hey there friends, what's going on? It's Kodiak here, back for another Biomutant video, and I spent a good portion of the day sifting through all of the brand new gameplay footage, the character customization footage, and I've picked apart a ton of information that I want to share with you guys, the little bitty details that are actually important when it comes to a game like this. There are a lot of people around the internet that are just finally figuring out about this game, but if you're watching our channel, you know that we've been covering Biomutant for a little bit now, and we're trying to find out the specifics, the details that actually matter to the players, and that's exactly what I'm going to try and do for you guys today. Break down those big bits of information that are actually going to matter when we eventually get into the game on May 25th. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that a bunch of different news outlets did get access to the game in a hands-off preview, and through that we learned a lot about the character customization and a lot about some of the gameplay elements that we still didn't really know all of the details about, but look to be finalized ahead again of that May 25th launch. Now, the first thing I want to talk about are the biomes. There are 7 confirmed biomes in the game, and this is really exciting because we've known that there are a number of different biomes present within Biomutant. We didn't know exactly how many, we didn't know exactly what all of them are, and we still don't, but we can pretty much put all the pieces together that we're going to have a heat biome, a cold biome, a radioactive biome, an asphyxia biome, and all of that has to do with what we're learning in the character creator. Now again, remember, back in our ultimate preview video, we talked about the map size for Biomutant being relatively small, and it is. But through all this gameplay footage, we can clearly see definitions between all of the different biomes set up by different color palettes, different enemies that we're going to be fighting. So the 7 biomes is a really big thing. We finally know more about the world with which we're going to be exploring. Now, I mentioned the character customization, the character creator, if you will. It's an essential part of any RPG, and that's where I want to go next because we've seen the leaks, we've seen all of the ideas that we thought were going to be in the game, but now we know for sure. And to start off, we get to pick between one of 6 breeds, and these 6 breeds are actually also the 6 breeds that are going to define the different tribes within the world. Remember, there are 6 tribes, there are now 6 breeds, it's all starting to come together. Those 6 breeds are the Primal, the Dumdon, the Rex, the Hyla, the Fip, and the Murgle, and each of them is going to define a certain set of statistics just a little bit more. You're not going to get vastly different power swings by picking one breed over another. It's just that foundational piece that allows you to look a little bit different, have some slightly different stats, and yes, those stats do actually matter when you tie in all of the class information that we learned today as well. There is a little bio associated with each of the breeds, but you guys can read that yourselves because again, I care about the details. Now, those bios do inform a little bit about what the stat differences are within that breed, but you need to look for yourself on the right-hand side of the screen and see where the differentiating stats are. If you're going for a Psi Freak or one of the magic users, of course you want more intellect. That's just a given. So you need to look at how the breed changes the stats and what's the right balance for your character and your playstyle. Now, speaking of the stats or the attributes themselves, we finally get an official look at what those are going to look like. Again, we've seen the leaks and it looks pretty similar, but now we get it locked in. We've got vitality, strength, intellect, charisma, agility, and luck. Those are exactly the ones that we talked about from the leaked images. But within those are the subcategories: health, armor, melee damage, power, key energy, energy regen, barter, move speed, critical chance, and loot chance. And as you're picking your breed, you're going to see that all of those numbers are going to fluctuate. Now, this gets even more interesting when you get to the next section of character customization, which is the attribute manipulation stage. Now, this is much more of a balancing act than we had originally thought, and as you move your cursor around, you're actually going to see all of the stats change in real time. You only have a limited number of points, obviously, but it's all taken place in this seamless process, and you don't actually get to micromanage the specific stat numbers. You basically have to find the right balance, and that's a slightly different idea than most other RPGs, but still pretty interesting. As you're changing the balance of the stats, your character is actually going to change the way they look. If you go towards a strength character, you're going to look all beefy. If you go towards a charisma character, you're going to look all smarky. And if you go towards an intellect character, well, then you're going big brain. So you're getting a physical representation of the changes that you're making, and I think that's really cool. You take this same idea and you also have the chance to choose a resistance, and this is just a starting place for the resistances that you're going to need to acquire in the game through loot and other means of progression, because you do have those various biomes that you have to survive in: heat, biohazard, radioactive, cold, asphyxia. Now those are just 5 elements within 7 biomes, but those are going to be important because once you go into a biome that is technically a resistance-based biome, because the more resistance you have to a certain element, the slower it is to basically overcome you and eventually kill you. Here again, it's a balancing act, and you can't outright resist something entirely, but you can get a nice jump on one of the 4 major resistances in the game. There are also some more customization options for the way that your character looks, including the markings, and then you can change the primary and secondary colors and the saturation of those colors, so enough customization that I think a lot of people are going to be satisfied. It's not total manipulation of the character, but there's enough there that I think most RPG fans will be okay with the amount of options within the game. Now finally, we have to talk about the classes within the game, and of course, we did have that video talking about the leaks that we had seen for Biomutant, and all of those leaks were pretty spot on. We've got the 6 classes in the game: the Deadeye, the Commando, the Psy-Freak, the Saboteur, the Sentinel, and of course that pre-order class, the Mercenary. Now each of those classes has some special abilities. You can scroll through the video and check those out yourself. We actually talked about those in the leak video too, and we were about 90% accurate with that. So most of the classes are designed around a specific playstyle. The Deadeye is a balanced class that uses ranged and melee. The Commando is more of a ranged gun class. The Psy-Freak is more of a magic wielding class. The Saboteur is a dual wielding melee class. And then the Sentinel is kind of a jack of all trades, more of a damage dealing tank than anything else. So enough diversity that I think a lot of players are going to find something that fits the bill. And just a small little nod to our community here, we did put out a poll asking people what class they were most interested in the game, and overwhelmingly they said the Psy-Freak. So a lot of magic wielding mutants going to be running around in Biomutant again on May 25th. Alright, that's enough about the character customization, those screens. I do love that stuff, don't get me wrong, but I want to talk about the gameplay, because we saw a lot of really cool systems and elements at play during this 10 to 15 minute demo period, and I am just so excited to talk about it because there's a lot of really cool stuff here to unpack. Now the first thing is that there are near real-time radial menus, and this breaks down into consumables, mounts, and abilities. You get radial menus for each of them. Consumables, you have 8 slots, and those break down into things like health regen items, damage increase items, energy regen items, but obviously there are going to be more that we can scavenge and create out in the world. The same thing goes for the mounts. We've asked a number of times in our videos, how the heck do we get these mounts? When can we summon them? And it looks like you're going to be able to summon most, if not all of them, whenever you want, using a simple radial menu. So this is really cool. Again, 8 slots. We see all of the different options that we've seen in previous trailers, like speed mounts, combat mounts, flight mounts, water traversal. I mean, we knew there were going to be a lot of mounts in the game, but now that we know that we can summon 8 of them at any given time is pretty exciting. Finally, we do have an abilities menu, and again, this is kind of a near real-time reactionary radial menu. You can use your abilities. There are only 4 slots here. The smart money says that we'll be able to change these out as you progress through the game. We haven't seen the progression system when it comes to skills and abilities quite yet, but we've played RPGs for quite some time, and that's usually how those things go. As we can see here, this character has 4 fully stacked out abilities, like the mushroom jump ability and the charge ability. We've seen both of those in some of the recently released footage. Now, one of the other things that really interested me about all of this gameplay was the loot. It's an RPG after all, and when I think of RPGs, I think of collecting loot and finding loot. And of course, being that it's Biomutant, that things are a little quirky and different, all of the loot looks really interesting, but the stats associated with them are pretty much what we'd expect. We've got a rarity, a quality, a material, and then the basic stats that go along with the gear that will, of course, enhance our own characters. We also have a resistance component, of course, stacking onto the resistances that you built out during the character customization, and that's going to allow you to move into the different biomes that are hazardous. And with all this gear, you must be wondering, are there loadouts in the game? And the answer is yes. You're going to have 5 loadouts that you can change at any given time, And that is fantastic considering there are AAA games that just don't do this. And it's ridiculous because it's one of the first things that players ask for. They've got all this gear, they've got all their looks, and they want to be able to swap that out on the fly. So it looks like Experiment 101 is making that a central component of Biomutant. There were also a ton of small little details that I just picked out of the trailer, and I wanted to share a bunch of that with you guys now because I think these things are important. Like the fact that there is a quick heal option. You get low on health, you don't have to go into your radial menus to heal, you can just use down on your D-pad or a button on your keyboard and you're going to be able to quick heal. I think that's important to know. Also, we've got the Super WUNG-FU. That's that special ability that you charge up and can unleash on enemies. We thought that this was going to be kind of a one-trick pony. You get one ability, maybe you could change it out, something like that, but it doesn't actually look like it functions that way. When you get your Super WUNG-FU, it's on a timer and you can use multiple different abilities to unleash a barrage of different style attacks on your enemies. That includes your ranged weapons, your melee weapons, and that is definitely a difference from what we've seen in previously released footage. So I'm really excited about that because I think that supercharged ability, the Super WUNG-FU, is something that a lot of players are going to rely on, and it's going to be a big part of the combat within the game. We also learned that the cricket that we saw all the way back at the cinematic trailer release back in, what was that, 2017, is actually called an automaton, and these are found throughout the world, and they are going to have a gameplay implication within Biomutant. They're going to help you reach certain areas. I would imagine they're going to help us find new loot in some capacity, and they may actually have some sort of combat implication, but we didn't get those details from all of this footage. But we do know we can find them out in the world. There are going to be different rarities of these, and yes, they are going to inform a little bit of our gameplay, so that's really exciting. Another thing is the aura system, or the morality system that we talked about in the Ultimate Preview video. We know that there are 6 tribes within the world, and instead of thinking of them as good and bad, it's more about light and dark. We know that the system is officially called the aura system, and basically what it boils down to is your alignment. If you're a light character and you're interacting with another light character, that interaction is going to be easier. Now, if you have conflicting auras, if you're light and the person you're talking to is dark, you're going to have a more confrontational conversation. Not necessarily bad, but just a little bit more difficult to navigate. So still waiting to see the finer details of the aura system, but it is nice to know that there's a little bit more definition around that concept. I also want to talk about puzzles. We saw our first glimpse of a puzzle within the world. It was called a rotation puzzle, and it was a simple enough idea, spinning some things around, trying to get the right alignment. But it is cool. This is taking a page out of all of the former RPGs that have used puzzle elements. It's nice to see that it's not all run and gun. There are some thinking elements to the game, and I think having that variety is really nice. We'll see if those puzzles become more of a nuisance than anything else, but for now, I'm firmly in the camp of, yes, more variety in the types of activities we're doing are very good. Finally, I want to talk about area objectives. Obviously, this is an open world game, and for the first time, we actually saw a big slew of area objectives, and this means all of the things that you can do within a different section of the world. In the example that we saw, this broke down into finding certain containers, finding ultimate melee weapons, superb loot, old world gadgets, in an underground area. So if you guys think that there is not going to be a lot to discover and explore and find out secrets within the world of Biomutant, I think you are sadly mistaken. It looks like the Experiment 101 team has a lot in store for us as players, and I could not be more thrilled. Honestly, guys, a lot of different news outlets are releasing this footage. I would highly recommend that you go watch it start to finish. Honestly, I would just mute the sound because a lot of the people that are talking about the game have no idea what they're talking about. It's a little frustrating considering that we're watching it secondhand. We didn't get access to this footage ourselves to put together some content ahead of time, but I just implore you to go watch it because there's some really cool stuff. We are obviously so hyped about this game. We are getting more and more excited about Biomutant each and every day, but again, cautiously optimistic. We've been let down by a couple big games in the last year or so. Cautiously optimistic as we move closer to that May 25th release date. And as always, guys, you know that we will be covering Biomutant inside and out here at Legacy Gaming. So if you like our content and you want to support the channel, hit that thumbs up and of course, subscribe. It's completely free for you and it really does help us out a ton. You can also join us on Discord. We've got a community of about 7,000 members with a section of our Discord made just for Biomutant. So if you want to talk about the game, share your picks, share your ultimate weapons. You will be able to do that once the game goes live. Finally, guys, if you want to support us even more, you can now become a member of Legacy Gaming. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you can help evolve the community and take our channel to that next level. Check out the join button below to learn more. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.